Hello and welcome back to another episode of Vinyl Hoarders. A couple weeks back, I dropped my New Wave Starter Pack 1980 Part 1 video, where I discussed 5 noteworthy records that I consider classics of the genre. Well, today I am back with Part 2 to 1980, excited to share 5 more New Wave records that you should know about. So stick around because today we're going to discuss field testing your demos with the cool kids in your own club, using a whip to remove women's clothing, and iconic cultural fanfare for cable TV. This is New Wave Starter Pack 1980 edition, Part 2. New Wave was a musical genre coming out of the late 1970s and early 1980s, taking its name from the French New Wave cinema of the late 1950s. This catch-all classification was defined in opposition to punk, which was generally more raw, rough-edged, and political, and to mainstream corporate rock, which many new wave upstarts considered complacent and completely stagnant. The basic principles behind new wave were the same as that of punk. Anyone can start a band, but new wave artists, influenced by the lighter side of 1960s pop music and 1950s fashion, were more commercially viable than their abrasive counterparts. Often conflated with post-punk, new wave music encompasses a wide variety of styles, including jerky rhythms, angular guitar riffs, forward-thinking recording techniques, use of diverse instruments including synthesizers, and often shared a quirky insouciance and sense of humor. Some of the original new wave pioneers included groups like the B-52s, Gary Newman, Adam and the Ants, and Culture Club. In recent years, new wave has resurged several times due to growing nostalgia for several new wave influenced musicians and the general cyclic nature of musical trends. Okay, let's tune our shortwave radio frequencies back to the year 1980. First record, John Foxx, Metamatic. John Foxx got his start as the frontman of British new wave band Ultravox in the late 70s. At this time, Ultravox weren't really an electronic band. On the 3 LPs that Foxx recorded with them, the band took influence from the punk and glam rock scenes of the time and added the occasional noodling synth solo over top of what was essentially just straightforward rock numbers. After one last tour in '79, Foxx departed what was seemingly a promising up-and-coming group to focus on work as a solo artist, releasing his debut album, Metamatic, on the 18th of January 1980 by Virgin Records. I covered the story of Ultravox's next release, Vienna, on Part 1, link down in the description. While devoid of the mainstream success his former band would go on to enjoy, Metamatic does feature a slick and resonant cult-style appeal for those listeners looking for something a lot deeper. It has a certain auteur feel with a crisp and firm artistic direction. Foxx shifted to an almost fully electronic sound. Listening to it today, Metamatic feels stark, cold and bare, like a brutalist landscape in some dystopic future. Its deadpan delivery about urban decay and the hollowness of modern living would make it a seminal record in 1980, hugely influential on the many synth-pop and cold wave artists for years to come. Opener Plaza blends several streams of icy synths into an ominously dramatic intro before Foxx comes in to describe the environment where we find ourselves. Foxx sings, "Down escalators, come to the sea view. Behind all the smoked glass, no one sees you. A familiar figure comes to meet you. I remember your face from some shattered windscreen." Much of Metamatic's lyrics were heavily inspired by J.G. Ballard's writings. Underpass, the album's lead single, is Metamatic at its most hooky. You can't deny chanting that big chorus declaration of Underpass, which for decades fans have joked sounds strikingly more like underpants. Similarly, second single, No One Driving, features a tremendous synth hook, tight hand claps, and an intense refrain that's closer to being yelled than spoken. Aside from Foxx's voice, the only traditional instrument to be heard anywhere on Metamatic is bass guitar. This helps in adding depth to tracks like 030, giving it a bit more of a post-punk feel without drifting too far from the album's singular vision. While Foxx himself may not have become a household name, his work has gone on to influence a great number of other electronic artists, including Gary Numan and Stephen Merritt of the Magnetic Fields, primarily due to the uncompromising vision presented on this debut album. Original UK pressing, inner sleeve, next record, Blondie, Auto-American. Auto-American is the 5th studio album by New York City band Blondie, released on the 26th of November, 1980 by Chrysalis Records. Originally part of the burgeoning new music scene coming out of mid-70s Manhattan and the whole CBGB scene, Blondie were a pioneer of the American new wave genre and movement of the mid-70s. This album was a bit of a departure for the band, seeing them experiment with synthesizers, orchestral elements, and rap music, as well as blending various art rock aspects in with their traditional new wave sounds. Swapping New York for LA, the basic Blondie sextet was augmented by numerous session musicians, including a lot of uncredited horn and string players, expanding their stylistic range, leading to a greater chart success on 2 of the album's singles. One of the bigger songs here is The Tide is High, which was a cover of the Paragon's 1967 Jamaican rocksteady song. Here they give it this massive and slick studio arrangement with an expanded percussion section. It would go on to hit #1 in several countries, including the US and UK. On Auto-American, their iconic song Rapture is presented in its full-length arrangement. This is a performance and production tour de force with tubular bells, strings, horns, and guitar jangle sounding like it's probably influenced by Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, which was released the year prior. The outro musical jam that follows Debbie Harry's rap bridge is a record highlight. Bizarrely, their label Chrysalis would then pull promotion of Auto-American in favor of promoting Harry's debut album, Cuckoo, not even bothering to release a 3rd single after scoring 2 chart-topping hits. Which is too bad because, to me, Angels on the Balcony is this record's sleeper hit. It's a classic slice of new wave pop with an uplifting chorus and some lovely guitar work from Chris Stein. The influence this tune had on bands ranging from Garbage to The Killers and Yeah Yeah Yeahs is fully on display here. Original US pressing, inner sleeve, next record, Visage. Part band, part artist collective, part fashion movement. Visage is the debut studio album by British synth-pop band Visage, released in November 1980 by Polydor Records. Visage were very closely linked and commonly regarded as founders for the New Romantic movement. Additionally, this album is often looked back on as the product of an 80s supergroup, because so many of the musicians involved with it previously had or would go on to enjoy huge success in other projects. Claiming in his autobiography to have coined the name, Ringleader Steve Strange explained the first part, Viz, stood for the visual elements of the band, the middle section, Visa, indicated they would see international success, and the end section, Age, symbolized their part in the new age of music. Strange was less of a musician and more of a tastemaker, and the club promoter for what was then London's famous nightclub, The Blitz. The Blitz's DJ, Rusty Egan, was also a percussionist and had previously worked in punk band Rich Kids, where they met Midge Ure. Famous for his many connections and skills at leveraging them, Egan would put together a sort of dream team out of the many musicians he knew at the time. Ure, who'd been orphaned by the dissolution of Rich Kids, Billy Currie, one-time synthesist of Ultravox before their group split apart, and several members of Buzzcocks alumnus Howard Devoto's band Magazine. A bit of a motley crew for sure, but you really can't argue with the huge success Visage would achieve. After some initial demo work, Strange, Egan, and Ure would reconvene to recording in 1979 after field testing their demos with trendy new romantic clubbers at the Blitz. With support from Dave Formula, John McGeoch, and Barry Adamson, they would fill out their early arrangements, releasing the final record in November 1980, which would be certified silver by the British phonographic industry by March of '81. Mind of a Toy has a deeper and darker message than you might expect. Here Strange is narrating the thoughts of a plaything that's lost its luster and has been discarded in favor of newer and better diversions. This feels like a pointed criticism of the consumerist obsession with novelty, and possibly a sort of critique on the way that popular music disposes of so many of its once-loved idols who, like puppets, are often controlled by unseen outside forces. Fade to Grey is surely one of the most iconic songs of the early 1980s synth-pop era, and its music video pushed forth a bold new aesthetic for the new decade: sophisticated, futuristic, androgynous. While Steve Strange would consistently reject the term new romantic for his own work, his influence on the scene is just undeniable. Fade to Grey strikes a perfect balance between being debonair and mysterious, with its ghostly vocal reverb, and being a straight-up club classic with an absolutely massive synth riff. Fade to Grey was actually an even bigger hit in markets like France and Germany than in Visage's native UK. The inclusion of a French language translation of the main lyrics gives it a lot of European panache, and may have well been one of the main factors propelling it to international success. Opening track and final single, also titled Visage, is an assertion of the importance of fashion and style, with a soaring refrain that's quite easy to sing along to over a great driving bass and synth-laden backing. You know, there's something really satisfying about a track, artist, and album all having the same name. It's like a triple threat. Original Canadian pressing, and this is my original German pressing of Fade to Grey extended mix. Next record, The Buggles, The Age of Plastic. The Age of Plastic is the debut studio album by English new wave duo The Buggles, first released on the 10th of January 1980 on Island Records. A year and a half later, at 12:01 a.m. on August the 1st, 1981, MTV opened its debut broadcast with the perfectly titled Video Killed the Radio Star. But we do need to rewind a little bit. In the late 70s, keyboardist Jeff Downes and Trevor Horn met in London while they were both building their music careers. Gigging in various bands while also gaining experience as a producer, writing jingles, and producing albums for various punk rock bands, Horn would eventually go on to become one of the most successful producers of the 80s and 90s. After meeting guitarist Wooly, the trio would record demos in 1977 and 1978 that would eventually form the foundation for The Age of Plastic. Recorded in its final version primarily as a duo on a whopping, for the time, budget of £60,000, The Age of Plastic was chiefly inspired by Kraftwerk's 1978 album, The Man Machine. Horn sought out unconventional recording methods while Downes characterized much of the album as, quote, science fiction music, like modern psychedelic music, very futuristic. Opening track, Living in the Plastic Age, announces this album's themes and musical conventions immediately, with a medley of synth motifs and big sweeping vocal arrangements over this minimal metronomic beat. Looking back, Trevor Horn remembers, quote, Paul Robinson played the drums, and I do remember that by the time we'd finished playing Living in the Plastic Age, Richard Burgess was pale. He was so worn out because we insisted that it sound perfect and that he played it perfectly. And the funny thing is that when you listen to it, it sounds like a drum machine. Both Plastic Age and Video Killed the Radio Star sound like drum machines because at the time, we were so manic about them having that spot-on perfect techno feel, not some sort of bullshit Elton John groovy album feel. Elsewhere, Clean Clean is a blast of power pop and post-punk conventions, originally recorded with Wooly's previous band, Bruce Wooly and the Camera Club. This version would tone some of the more ragged elements back in favor of vocals, here focusing on war as a dirty business in which it's hard to remain clean. And now we come to Video Killed the Radio Star, released as a single on September the 7th, 1979, ahead of the album. It hit #1 across Europe, but was less popular initially in North America. It would get a second life on August the 1st, 1981 with its futuristic, past-shattering music video, including the appearance of a then unknown Hans Zimmer playing keyboards. The song's brilliant cultural awareness prior to the arrival of the music video, but amid the rising importance of visual media and pop culture, made it the perfect opening fanfare for announcing MTV's arrival on the cable television scene. Horn would comment, quote, I'd read J.G. Ballard and had this vision of the future where record companies would have computers in the basements and would manufacture artists. You could feel things were changing. Jeff Downes would say, quote, we stayed up for nights experimenting with different sounds. We wanted to cram as many ideas as we could into a pop song. The Buggles saw the future of popular music and culture and would leave us with this timeless gem. I don't know why I don't hear this song played as much as I used to, but it's a brilliant, nostalgic, yet apathetic reaction to the technological age where we currently find ourselves. If Video Killed the Radio Star, then TikTok is certainly killing the 3.5-minute pop song. Original US pressing. Love that reversible cover. And final record today, Devo, Freedom of Choice. Freedom of Choice is the third studio album by the American new wave band Devo, released on the 16th of May, 1980 by Warner Brothers. After breaking out nationally as an art rock curiosity with their Brian Eno-produced debut album, Are We Not Men, We Are Devo, in 1978, Devo disappointed critics, their record label Warner Brothers, and themselves with 1979's Duty Now for the Future, produced by Ken Scott. Following this, their label Warner Brothers presented the band with a make-or-break ultimatum for their forthcoming third album. Warner Brothers told the band that if sales did not increase for the new album's release, the label would terminate their contract, threatening the band's manager with litigation if Devo did not achieve chart success. While the material on Devo's first two albums mostly consisted of old songs written between 1974 and 1977, the band decided to compose all new material for the upcoming crucial third album, mostly written after the band had completed their second world tour. With Freedom of Choice, Devo would complete their transition into a full-fledged synth-pop group, producing arguably their most musically cohesive effort in the process. Bassist Gerald Casale recalled, quote, "This was a self-imposed challenge. Can we write songs? Because we always thought that that was a little bit beneath who Devo was, but in the end, not really. You have to be able to deliver." Synthesizers were by this point fully integrated into the band's sound, frequently dominating the arrangements and at least sharing equal time with the guitars. Everything was played with a cool, polished precision that mirrored the stylized uniformity of the band's visuals, the dissonance more subdued than in the past, and the uptight rhythms less jarring, instead locking the band into a rigidly even keel. Oddly, even though the music was the least human-sounding Devo had yet produced, their social observations were growing less insular and more sympathetic. Opener Girl You Want features a geeky romantic angst that was at the time new to Devo albums, although the band's view of relationships was occasionally colored by their cultural themes of competition and domination. Vocalist Mark Mothersbaugh intones, "She sings from somewhere you can't see. She sits on top of the greenest tree. She sends out an aroma of unrefined love. It drips on down in the mist from above." That's very unhygienic. Musically, the band are in lockstep. Rhythm, bass, angular guitar, and plucky synth riffs all coalescing around this vocal, reinforcing their message of unrequited love, worshipping below the tree. These preoccupations also inform their breakthrough hit single Whip It. Casale's lyrics here are intended to satirize American optimism. He took inspiration from communist propaganda posters and the 1973 novel Gravity's Rainbow that contained satirical limericks about capitalist can-do cliches. The lyrics as well as the music video were also partially influenced by a news story the band read about a guy who liked to use a whip to remove his wife's clothing. Although Whip It was not about masturbation or sadomasochism as some listeners believed, Devo used these sexual themes for the accompanying music video. Although the video attracted some controversy, particularly for its perceived misogyny, the band meant it partially as a reaction to then President Ronald Reagan's previous career as a Hollywood actor. Devo wanted to make a video that satirized both the cowboy mythos and right-wing racist values. Leveraging this controversy, MTV, which was launched in 1981, then gave the video so much exposure that it temporarily revived the song's popularity shortly before the release of Devo's next studio album, New Traditionists, later that year. My favorite is title track Freedom of Choice, which features this brilliant synth bridge and confident stomping rhythms. During the outro, Mothersbaugh sings, "Freedom of choice is what you got. Freedom from choice is what you want." The production on this album is just stunning. The bass pumps throughout every track, and the synthesizers are cold, clinical, and stabbing, providing some exceptional melodic flair. Devo would go on to inspire countless groups including Weezer and Matt Sharp offshoot band The Rentals, as well as James Murphy's LCD sound system. This is a repress. Hilarious inner sleeve. White. So that's gonna do it for today. I'm going to link my other new wave and post-punk 1980 videos in the description, so go check those out too for more great recommendations. Are you familiar with all of the records I covered? What are your favorite new wave albums of 1980 or of all time? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this content, be sure to give it a thumbs up. 1981 is right around the corner, where we'd see the emergence of Duran Duran, a huge international hit from the Human League, and these 4 teens from Basildon who'd play synths teetering on milk crates. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss this upcoming episode. Thanks for watching. You can see more of my videos right here. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you guys in the next one.